I'm back, and today I thought we'd recreate something a bit like the night vision camera from Outlast, if any of you guys out there have played that. And we're going to go through a couple of different little techniques, a few different components to play with. For now, I've just opened up the same scene I had in my last video and imported a bunch of assets here. We're going to need a noise mask, which you can just generate in Photoshop, just some monochromatic noise. A lookup table, which I'll get to in a sec, and a bunch of graphical assets for the camera, plus just a black square that we'll use a little bit later. So first things first, well, it's night vision, so let's just adjust the scene here a bit, make some darkness, and so that we can see what's going on, I'm just going to add a few lights, just a few point lights, scatter them around. Here we are. And also, it's not going to make much sense if this is in third person. So if you don't know how to add an extra like template content example, it's in add new, and we'll pick the, where is it? First person was the right there. And we just hit add, and there she is. So we can get rid of the third person guy. And we'll add our first person character in there and just, oh. Yeah, so we're going to have to that's better. Let's open him up. The first thing we're going to do is muck around with the post-processing of the scene. So over here in add component of the first person character, you need to add a post process. Let's call it post process. Make sure that it's set to unbound. And that's it for now. But when we go back to the scene, we'll be able to adjust it in real time. So I'm just going to plug in some of my own values here, just for the sake of brevity. But in your own projects, you're going to want to dial this in, you know, to fit your own work. We'll just going through here. It looks decidedly purple at the moment. So you can spend all day in the post-processing material just playing around with values, making it fit what you want to do. We want to up the vignette here so that it, just to sell the darkness a bit better, make the middle of the screen sort of pop out a bit more. And classic feature of a night vision camera is grain. So I'll put that up fairly high. 0.5 gives us a nice looking effect. And the last thing we want to do with the post-process material is add a lookup table, because you can spend all day just in the material in Engine to make it look like the values that you want. But there's a slightly easier way around it. So the way I usually make my lookup tables is I'll take a screenshot of the scene just with as many features as I can, paste the lookup table over the top, which you can find in the UE4 documentation on their website, free download. And then using blending layers over the top, such as exposure, hue, and different color. Any one of these layers here that you can produce with this button to change the way the scene looks. And you'll notice that the lookup table here changes along with the screenshot if all the layers are over the top of them. Then you hold in Control and click on the color lookup table. Make a new layer, hit Control, Alt, Shift, E to create a composite of all of those visible layers. Then copy the lookup table off that, make a new document. It should default to the resolution. And then paste. And there is your lookup table. Thankfully, I've done this, so you don't have to. I'll include a link to a zip file with all of these assets in the description below. So we'll plug in our lookup table. Oof, that is very, very intense. I might even turn down the grain, because that is some serious grain. That is looking very, very odd. But again, like, these are your values. You can dial them in as you know, as you feel is appropriate. Anyway, we'll continue on. We'll continue on. So the next thing to make is a material for our post-process. Get a little bit of UV distortion. So we'll come down here, open a new material, call it PP camera, and open it up. And this is going to be very, very similar to the heat haze material that I made in my last tutorial. So we'll start with that, making sure to set the material to post-process. We've got our scene color, which goes into the emissive, and we'll need an add, a multiply, our noise mask, a panner, and texture coordinates. 2 texture coordinates. And we'll just hook all this up. The B value of our noise mask has to be really quite low, I've noticed, 0.0015. We'll plug our panner in, giving these both values of 1. Connect it all up. I'm not explaining this part too much. Oh, what? Compile errors. Ah, of course, this has to be changed to post-process input 0. And we'll get our post-process material from the post-process we just made in our character. Post-process materials plus, and we want an asset reference, and we want to use that, our UV distortion. Oh, no, here it is. Yeah, so if we open up our lookup table and change the texture group to a lookup table so that the engine knows what's going on, we'll get a much, yeah, that's made the material work a little better. Now we need to make our camera widget. So if we right click in our folder, go user interface, then widget blueprint, and we'll call it camera HUD. We'll open that up. And we'll drop all of these guys in. Now I'm just going to go fairly quickly here, just for the sake of time. But yeah, you'll want to spend more time, ideally, on getting this to work, getting this to look good. Just trying to eyeball it. That'll do. Ah, come on. And if we just invert these size values, we can adjust these corner pieces for each corner. Just like that. And this one I want to be negative in both. Perfect. And we want to change the anchor as well so that all of them are centered. Done, and we're ready to go. Now, we'll, for a little bit of flair, we'll get this red dot here. Let's rename it so we know which one it is. Dot, head to the graph. This is where we can just make things happen in the widget, like if, you know, we got buttons to push and that kind of thing. But for now, all we need is just a blinking light for the record dot. So all this is we're just going to switch the visibility of the of the dot at a ½ second interval using this node, a T flip-flop. So every time this cycles, it's going to come out of here opposite, like it's going to switch every time it hits this flip-flop. And then a set visibility with our dot as the target. And we'll duplicate this just once. Plug each end into the flip-flop and make sure that one of them is set to hidden. So it's going to toggle from visible to hidden as it, at each ½ second. So that's pretty simple. And while we're here, let's take everything except the dot and the record, and we'll lower the opacity just for a bit more of a real video camera type of thing. Color and opacity, and we'll change the alpha to say 0.4. We'll save that, and that's that stage done. Now we're going to want to jump into our first-person character again, and we'll play around in here for a little bit. So I guess first we don't need some of these things. Like, we're not going to need the gun, so we can disconnect that. And we're not going to need the arms or the shooting, so that all should work just fine. Oh, what's happened? No, that's working okay. Although we could get rid of the HUD. We don't need that crosshair. There. Perfect. All right, so back in our first-person character, we're going to go to the event graph, and we need to find the begin play node, which may not be here. That's all right. Just right-click, type in begin play, and there it is. Now we'll create a widget. Create widget of the class camera HUD, and we want to make a new variable over here on the left called camera HUD. Make sure that we set it to a widget. And we want to set the camera HUD here, this return value, and we'll link that up. Then we want to add it to the viewport. Probably have to go from add to viewport. We'll plug that into our set. Then another set visibility with this same return value here, and we'll set it to visible for now. Don't know what that is. Oh, that can go away. So there we have it. There is our camera HUD. And we got an okay, not quite so brilliant night vision effect there. But I'm actually thinking that we could probably turn up the grain somewhat. And you know what I'll do? Put a player start, because I think that's why it's not not spawning us properly. So we can adjust the grain a little bit more. It's a process. Like we're going to keep going through and iterating it as we go. Bit more grain. Not too much grain. And we're getting there. Now, another cool effect that we could do is to toggle the camera. We'll toggle it on and off. So for that, and we'll be a little bit classy, we'll make ourselves a new widget. And we'll call this one Quick Fade. Quick Fade HUD. We'll open that up, and we'll drag in our black square. This is a kind of inelegant way to solve this issue, but it works. And it's really, really easy and simple. So I thought I'd do it this way. So we just cover the whole canvas with it, with our black. Add a new animation, call it fade, for example. And make sure our timeline's up, obviously. Make a new track for our image, our black. And this is going to be a color and opacity track. So we'll just bring that down. We're at frame 0, so that's keyed. We'll key it at 0 so that it's not visible. We'll go up to a ½ second. We'll key that at 1, and then at the 1 second mark, we'll key it at 0. And that's pretty much it. That gets our animation. Now if we step over to the graph, and we're going to use our event construct, and we'll get a play animation. Drag our fade animation in and plug that in. And I don't think we need to do this. No. So it's going to play that animation, all those tracks in the animation that we just made, which is just this opacity track. So that's finished. That bit is done. We'll compile and save, and then we'll head back to our first-person character, and we're going to call a key press. I use the C key for this, but you can use whatever key you want. You can go into your project settings and create new input if you want to. But this is just going to work here for the tutorial. And we're going to need another variable. No, we don't need another variable. We need to drag in our post process, and we're going to find its enable, set enabled. And while we're here, we'll get our post process and we will disable it by default. So when the game starts, it's going to be not enabled, as we'll see. So that's default lighting. But we're going to use the C key to enable it. So we're going to need another flip-flop, because it's going to toggle when we press the key. We need to create a widget. This is our quick fade. And add it to viewport. And then we're going to delay. So we're going to give the fade time to actually fade out. And if you remember, we made our fade HUD. It's exactly 1 second long, which means that it's going to be at its most opaque at the ½ second mark. So at 0.5, we're going to enable our camera HUD. So we're going to get set visibility. It's down here. Well, first off, we need to set the visibility to hidden. There it is. So we're going to set visibility to hidden in the begin play tree. And we're going to set it to visible after the key press. So we'll drag in our camera HUD just to get and plug it in there. And then we'll enable the post process. And then to stop key spam, we're going to just delay for, say, 1 second. Then you take all of these, duplicate, Control W, send it to the other end. And for this one, we want to set it to hidden, and we want to disable the post process. Remember to plug your camera and the post process into their nodes. And that's done. That is our tree finished. So let's give it a test. There it is. There's our night vision. So that's all there is to this tutorial. Obviously, with your own projects, you're going to want to dial it in yourself to get the best effect, your desired effect out of it. But I'm quite a fan of this, and with one simple key press, we have like a nice classy transition to getting our camera HUD going with the night vision effect, a bit of UV distortion with our material, And yeah, it's not too difficult to do. So that's it for me for this week, guys. I'll see you next time.